Welcome back. All right, we're going to talk about WrestleMania 5 today. So I'm going through all these. The view counts on them is low, but it's, of course, Entertainment Guy videos. I do have that happen. And so as these go along and people are like, hey, wait a minute, that was while I was alive. Maybe more people will click on them. But we go to WrestleMania 5, which was a depressingly long time ago. And we start off with a match that went 6 minutes and 57 seconds. Hercules got a bit of a push after he turned face. He defeats King Haku here. Haku never really got a push, despite his reputation for being one of, if not the toughest wrestler. He never really got a push. He didn't really get that in WCW either. Like, he was never a main event guy. I think that if he had been a wrestler now, I think he would have been. He was at least as tough as Jacob Fatu, who gets a lot of kudos right now from fans. And I feel like wrestling's a little different now than it was back then. A little bit, just a little bit. And then 8 minutes and 2 seconds, the Twin Towers, Akeem, the former one-man gang, tagging with Big Boss Man, because sure, why not? They defeated the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. So one thing that's interesting is everybody remembers Shawn Michaels was in the Rockers with Marty Jannetty. They never won anything. Like it felt like if it was a big match, the Rockers were going to lose. And so while it was a huge surprise when they started fighting, it was clear they were going to break up the tag team, because to me, they hadn't won the tag belts yet, so I wasn't sure whether they were breaking them up. But yeah, they didn't win here. The Twin Towers get the win, and it is really Vince McMahon's love of the big man in wrestling, right? It's a big part of what happens when you look at the booking back then. But while the Rockers, I think, are better wrestlers than Akeem and Bossman at this point, Akeem and Bossman both big wrestlers, and so they get. Why couldn't he just stay one man gang? I will never understand why he didn't just remain the one man gang. It made no sense. Oh, he's Africa. Why? Just why? What a stupid gimmick. Then 10 minutes and 1 second is what it takes for Brutus Beefcake and Ted DiBiase to have a match that ends in a double countout. Kind of sad for Ted DiBiase on this one. That, I mean, not that Brutus Beefcake was an opening night or opening match guy or anything, but yeah, once DiBiase was done in his hunt for the WWF title, I mean, his feuds were always about he has a lot of money, he's trying to buy people. It's basically rinse and repeat. And yeah, that one ending in a double countout is what it is. 5 minutes and 23 seconds, the the Bushwhackers, defeated the fabulous Rouos. The Bushwhackers were always faces in WWF. I feel bad for people who didn't see the Sheepherders wrestle before that, because, man, I remember there was one match they were in the NWA, which became, well, it was Worldwide Wrestling, became WCW. And the crowd starts a USA chant. You know, you get USA, USA. And they were beating up the other wrestlers. I don't remember. I think they were against the Rock and Roll Express, whoever it was. And one of the members of the Bushwhackers, who were then the Sheepherders, turned around and goes, yeah, US Bloody A. Look at this. Yeah, US Bloody A. The crowd stopped. They are the only tag team I could remember at that time that were able to successfully shut down a USA chant. It was great. And that's the side of them that WWF fans never saw. To this day, whenever they come out there. It's just too bad. It's just too bad that they were never heels of WWF. I always felt like that was a missed opportunity. They were so good as bad guys, and yeah, it just never happened. It's too bad. But yeah, the Bushwhackers defeat the fabulous Rouos. The Rouos were okay as a tag team. This is an era where you had a lot of really good tag teams, which I think WWF really has dropped the ball on for a long time. There are some good tag teams right now that I don't think get the amount of ring or airtime that they should, and it continues to be a situation where it feels like if you want to make the money, if you want to get the fame, you have to be a single star. Tag teams, not as much. Then in 5 minutes and 38 seconds, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, defeated the Blue Blazer, who, yep, that was Owen Hart. Never understood putting Owen Hart under a mask. Never understood the whole Blue Blazer gimmick. I never liked it. Owen Hart was, and I remember in Stampede Wrestling, he was the ultimate underdog face. They had Jason the Terrible and Owen Hart, and honestly, Owen Hart was just such an amazing baby face that you could get behind, and then WWF puts him under a mask and makes him the Blue Blazer and turns him into a joke. I do not understand that for the life of me. And then he was an excellent heel, but they never really got into, like, I really felt like when Bret Hart left the way that he did, and then Owen Hart came out the next night on Raw, and he was legitimately throwing some punches there. I thought, this is their chance to finally get Owen Hart as the sympathetic babyface and really put him over. And they didn't. They just didn't. I felt like that was a wasted opportunity, and it starts here with the ridiculousness of the guy in the mask. 8 minutes and 20 seconds for Demolition to retain their tag titles against Powers of Pain and Mr. Fuji in a 2-on-3 match, and Fuji eats the pin there. The Powers of Pain was another tag team that looked like the Road Warriors. So the Demolition, who had a gimmick similar to the Road Warriors, defeats the team with a gimmick that's very similar to they just and then when the Road Warriors came in, everybody else was gone. But yeah, Powers of Pain lose. It was Barbarian and Warlord, and it really was that era of big men. All four of them were pretty darn big, and like I said, Fuji eats the pin. That way, the Powers of Pain could be like, "Hey, we didn't lose. We didn't get pinned." 3 minutes and 6 seconds for Dino Bravo to defeat Ronnie Garvin. Ronnie Garvin was one of my favorites in NWA. The Ronnie Garvin Ric Flair feud, I absolutely loved it. I know there are people who were not big Ronnie Garvin fans back then, but I thought he was great, and I love the Garvin Stomp. I know how ridiculous and stupid it can look, but I loved it, and I thought Ronnie Garvin was different than a lot of other wrestlers in that he didn't need like a fancy gimmick or anything, and I'm really glad they didn't. We'll get to the most ridiculous gimmick soon, but they didn't give him a ridiculous gimmick during his time there. 9 minutes and 17 seconds for the Brainbusters. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, the tag team. The ultimate tag team. And what's great about Tully and Arn is they were also really good singles wrestlers. In fact, Arn Anderson, to me, might be the most underrated wrestler in the history of wrestling that I've watched. He was so good in the ring. He was good at the power moves. He could move as well. And he had a little bit of everything to his arsenal. And some of the moves that he executed were just absolutely fantastic. Double leg takedown, Arn's your guy. And Tully, the slingshot suplex. My favorite finisher was the slingshot suplex. I loved it. I thought it was great. And you don't really see it anymore, and it's too bad. But there's a lot of moves that we watched back then we don't see anymore. But the Brainbusters defeated Strikeforce, which meant they broke up. Tito Santana and Rick Martel. We're getting close to the era where Rick Martel is the model. And Tito Santana would find himself out of the company, I think, not too long after that. Then we had the Piper's Pit with Morton Downey Jr. and Brother Love's in there, too. And it's all just ridiculous. It's most remembered for Morton Downey Jr. smoking a cigarette and blowing the smoke in Piper's face, and then Piper using the fire extinguisher. So that's why it's on the board, because it was kind of a big thing in WrestleMania 5 that happened. But of course, it's not a wrestling match or anything. Morton Downey Jr. was Jerry Springer before Jerry Springer. And because everybody remembers, Jerry Springer started everything. No, Morton Downey Jr. was really the guy that brought everything together. The Married with Children generation really gets started with Morton Downey Jr. And then, of course, you do get into others. 9 minutes and 44 seconds. Jake the Snake Roberts defeats Andre the Giant by disqualification. I thought Andre being scared of snakes was one of my favorite things of Andre back in the time, because I really got the feeling he was scared of snakes and he didn't want the snake coming near him. Which, when a guy's 7'3" or 7, whatever he was, sometimes they bill him as 7'5", 7'1", but just seeing a man that big being scared of a snake is entertaining. And it meant that Jake Roberts being so much smaller than Andre didn't necessarily matter, because Jake had Damien and Andre was scared of him. So Jake gets the win by DQ. It was fine. 7 minutes and 40 seconds. The Hart Foundation defeated Rhythm and Blues, which was Greg the Hammer Valentine and Honky Tonk Man. So after Honky Tonk Man loses the Intercontinental title and was the longest running Intercontinental champion, they put him in a tag team with Greg Valentine, where Greg Valentine's kind of dressed like Elvis too, and they're doing the guitar. It was weird. I never thought that suited Greg the Hammer Valentine, but it was fine. It was fine. But the Hart Foundation get the win, because to this day, probably one of my favorite tag teams would be the Hart Foundation. 9 minutes and 36 seconds is what it takes for Rick Rude to get the Intercontinental title away from Ultimate Warrior. I was surprised they gave it to Rick Rude, pleasantly surprised, but obviously for the Ultimate Warrior, greater things are ahead of him. The WWF title would be his at some point. But Rick Rude was an excellent wrestler who was in, of course, ridiculous shape, thus the ravishing nickname for him. And that was a good match. And keeping in mind, this is almost 10 minutes. So for Warrior, that's a pretty long match for Ultimate Warrior. Rick Rude got a good match out of him there. 3 minutes and 49 seconds for Bad News Brown and Jim Duggan to end in a double DQ. Not a whole lot to add to that. Yeah, double disqualification there. Well, anytime one of the wrestlers is grabbing a 2x4, you got a pretty good chance of it coming into the match, but that happened. And then 31 seconds, Red Rooster defeats Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan couldn't take a bump or anything. Like his I think it was his neck was all messed up, so you can't. And wasn't it Brian Pillman that caused him to swear on the air on WCW when he was an announcer? But yeah, Heenan, anytime he was in the ring doing anything physical, it didn't work because you knew he couldn't take a bump, right? So Red Rooster, who had been Terry Taylor, one of the worst gimmicks in the history of professional wrestling. This is why when people say, "Well, if you got a bad gimmick, you got to make it work," they called him the Red Rooster. He walked around crowing like a rooster. I don't know. I don't know how anybody could get that over, and it just felt like they were making fun of him. He was one of the ones that came over from the then World Wrestling, NWA situation there, and it just, yeah, he was a joke the whole way through. Uh, Terry Taylor was a wrestler that I thought was a pretty good mid card wrestler, but yeah, he got done dirty by WWF. That was a terrible gimmick, absolutely awful. And what a way to get ready for the main event. A 30-second match is what gets you ready for the main event. So you can't even say, well, that's a bathroom break. No, that's 30 seconds. That's an oops. You don't even have time to get up from the couch, go to the washroom, and come back in 30 seconds. So if that was your bathroom break, sorry. But yeah, 17 minutes and 54 seconds is the main event. The longest match at this point in WrestleMania history, I do believe. 17 minutes and 54 seconds for Hulk Hogan to defeat Randy Savage to win the world title. There was a lot of theatrics in this. Elizabeth being at ringside, and she was torn between whether she supported the good guy Randy or her abusive boyfriend Randy, or Hulk Hogan, who was the face, or Randy, who was the heel, and the abusive one at that. I was always uncomfortable with that stuff. Like, when Randy Savage attacked Hulk Hogan backstage, that was mildly uncomfortable because there was a feeling from wrestling fans of, is this real? So wrestling always rides that line of putting things on the air that will lead to wrestling fans go, I don't think that was supposed to happen. Or that thing he just said, I don't think he was supposed to say that. It's one of the reasons CM Punk's such a huge star now, is because he does do that. He does make comments. He does say things that probably aren't okayed backstage. But when you're a big star, it's easier to get away with that, right? If you're not a big star, even smiling at Vince McMahon as he walks by can get you fired. So Hulk Hogan defeating Randy Savage was obviously the way this was going to go. And it was a matter of Hogan getting his spot back. So Savage gets the spot at WrestleMania 4, and then WrestleMania 5, Hogan gets the spot back. And this would be a problem, would be Hogan getting right back. The problem, too, was it's not just a matter of Hulk Hogan winning and being champ. It's every Hulk Hogan match was the same. Every Hulk Hogan feud felt the same. And we'd already seen Hogan for years beating all these guys. So who was going to defeat Hulk Hogan the next time out? Eventually, it's the Ultimate Warrior, who doesn't last that long as champion either. There's been a lot said about Ultimate Warrior and how he was as champion. But what Ultimate Warrior had was he had the look, he had the energy, and he had the physique that Vince McMahon loved and seriously coveted. And Hulk Hogan being bigger than Savage, I think, was part of it. The bigger guy usually beat the smaller guy back then, it seemed. Which I understand a lot of people will say, well, that's logically how that works. Not really, though. There are many instances of a smaller guy beating up a bigger guy in various sports. I know as a hockey fan, there's a lot of the toughest guys in the league have been well below 6 feet tall. So I always felt kind of bad for Savage because it did feel like he just got too popular, and so then they had to make him a bad guy. It was really weird. He had not been a face for that long. And then he's back to being a bad guy so that Hogan gets his title back. So that's WrestleMania 5. And so we'll get into WrestleMania 6 tomorrow. WrestleMania 5 was okay. It was a good event. There were some big moments. Like I said, the Morton Downey Piper's Pit. They got a lot of stuff out of that. Demolition keeping the titles. and then the big moment being Hulk Hogan. The one thing that WrestleMania and in this era knew to do, one thing that this era knew to do well, is the finish and making sure the fans are going home happy, which is generally the result with WrestleMania, because it was seen as that's where the feuds end, at least usually. And there are some that did not end at WrestleMania, but we weren't having a pay-per-view 3 weeks later. It definitely does feel like these were huge, big, massive events that were built to for months, and now it just feels a little different, doesn't it? But there you go, WrestleMania 5. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. And so the mega powers have exploded. What awaits us at WrestleMania 6? That's a discussion for tomorrow. I will talk to you again soon.